make sure that I mute that. Here we are, Stanger.
What's up, my
And
man?
Stanger and I? Stanger and me. Me and Stanger.
No, I think it's I. Here I am.
Here I am.
Me and Stanger.
Yeah. Stanger and I.
Me and Stanger and I. Me and Stanger's accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than Stanger and me. That's like Mac and Me. You remember that movie? That's the fake E.T.?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I watched the shit out of it. We rented it. I was kind of excited to see it just because you wanted anything. You're looking for anything at that age.
Yeah.
There's so limited. There was, you get like a couple kids movies a year. So we're all pumped for it. And I remember I went to the movies with my friend, Zach Grimsley. And and I told everybody that I liked it and told myself that, but I really didn't like it, man.
I mean, let's be honest, that, they basically did like a fake, bicycle scene and
I know it was a total ET ripoff. I feel like McDonald's or something produced it. Yeah, McDonald's is in and Coke's in it because he drinks Coke through his finger, right?
Oh yeah.
So they're doing the ET finger. They're trying to give him his Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, and I mean it's the GoBots versus, the freaking. I mean, at the time it was basically Transformers versus the GoBots.
The GoBots.
Are you gonna buy GoBots or are you gonna just play with real Transformers? Like,
yeah.
Somebody already created somebody named Optimus Prime that everybody loves.
Yeah.
There's no way the GoBots, whoever their captain is or whatever, is not gonna.
The name is so lazy too, man. You got Transformers.
Yeah,
that's got a ring to it. You got GoBots.
Sure. You got GoBots. It's like, who cares?
Oh boy.
Who really is happening in the GoBots?
Oh boy.
But yeah, I mean,
real quick ET trivia. Eminem's passed on that. They could have been in the movie. His
really
treat. Yeah, they passed on that shit. That's talk about a mistake.
Well, I mean, saying and
you don't think so?
Well, I mean, I feel like the name Reese's Pieces or Reese's Pieces.
What do you say?
Is more fun than M&M's, to be honest.
I agree.
M&M's got saved by the rapper Eminem as well.
Yeah, that gave them a charge.
They gave him a charge.
They gave him a little bump.
That brought him back.
They got that bump.
Yeah.
What label was Eminem on? Interscope.
He was on Death. What's Dr. Dre's?
Is it Interscope or something like that? It's with Jimmy.
Yeah.
But I don't know what if. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Look, Eminem's. You're lucky because of the rapper. You blew it on the movie.
Mac and Me. You blew it on the. You just blew it. The design of the alien. It looks like a shaved human. I mean, I don't even know. Like,
yeah, what was the design? And they got his parents. His parents look like shit.
Man. Yeah,
the whole family looked like shit.
It's that high rib cage, low tummy sitch.
Yeah. Apple body, unhealthy.
Yeah, pear. Not even apple. It was a pear body.
Pear, yeah.
But it was a pear that was like a droopy pear body.
Yeah, a lot of putting fat on in bad places. A lot of internal organ, like visceral fat, or what is that? I don't know. Look, we should talk about a good movie.
We should. We will. We'll. I mean, it's such a good movie that it's a documentary. It's real stuff.
It's real stuff.
But and it came out at the right time.
Totally came out at the right time. I guess it'd been out for a while though, right?
Yes. Yeah. But
so this was a big.
ESPN
sorry. Go ahead.
No. I think ESPN got the rights to it.
Okay.
Later. Yeah.
This was a big Sundance favorite. So this got this, and this guy, is it Bao Nguyen?
Yeah.
Vietnamese filmmaker, American Vietnamese filmmaker. He's been working on it for years and finally got it together because I mean, where do you even start with Bruce Lee? For people that are just tuning in now, we're talking about the documentary Be Water, came out in 2020 about Bruce Lee. Just hopefully you guys watched it.
Yeah, it's available on ESPN now. Yeah.
Yeah. So anywhere you can find ESPN content, like maybe ESPN on demand or YouTube TV, Some of these other ESPN's a little tricky. They haven't quite figured it out yet, but I was
Right.
able to get YouTube TV because I watched the Jordan documentary through that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so this thing came out, and man, where do we even start on this?
I mean, it's, it's just like really impressive about his life, and it's all about it. And where he started and his philosophies and just like things that I actually had no idea about, but it was presented really well in the documentary. Like not only Bruce Lee's story alone, but like it was presented well where, as a documentary, it's like it really got you to understand what his drive was,
Yes.
and
Yes.
how driven he was, like not only as a martial artist, but just as a performer, and then also as like an athlete, like the
Right.
way, I would never have, thought would have, put Muhammad Ali and like that style of like fighting and stuff side by
Oh man,
side.
when they show it side by side, it gave me chills, man. It's so cool.
It's like, oh yeah, the influence is crazy. Yeah.
So my experience with Bruce Lee, so growing up, I obviously loved his movies, and he was one of these guys, and people know it now. You see on t-shirts, you see on posters, everybody's kind of obsessed with him. In America, his only like Warner Brothers American studio released film was Enter the Dragon,
Yeah.
which was a joint release. But so you watched that as a kid, and then there was like kind of a cheesy like a biopic about him,
Dragon.
Yeah, which I loved as a kid growing up.
Yeah.
They take a lot of liberties on, but the guy that played him, I thought, did a great job.
Yeah.
And it's a fun kind of shitty movie. And obviously Bruce Lee deserves more, but there should be 100 of these about him. There's people taking swings, but that's where I thought I had a lot of information about him, and they make up a lot of shit and kind of try to make it cinematic. But when you read, so another book I read too just recently was called Bruce Lee: A Life. And Eugene and I talked about that on the show a while back. When you see this and you see this documentary Be Water, you're like, oh man, they didn't need to make anything up. Like this is his life is so fascinating. I mean, outside of all the great stuff he did, just where he came from and what he did and how he changed, over his career in such a short time, he had such a short life, is really stunning. And the footage that they were able to put together for this, it's worth it that this guy spent so long or so much time and care putting this together, because there was stuff I'd never seen of him doing, like a screen test. And
oh my God, at the very beginning of that, it was just like, I watched it with Trish, and she was just like, are you going to be okay? Just because like, even in the screen test, you're just like, it feels, in today's climate too, it just felt like such a, you little Asian dude, do your thing, and show us how you're different from us. And it's like, oh, that's neat, that's impressive. And it's like, oof, okay, and it was, it's crazy, it's tough, but also just how remarkable he was.
It was really interesting to see too how he was able to take power back, even in that, to where they want him to kind of do what he does, and perform, but he demands that somebody get in frame with him, and then he starts. So right away, he's not being objectified anymore. He figures out a way to objectify the person that's running this thing.
Right.
And so he's doing these kicks, and the guy's flinching and stuff, and he's telling him like, don't worry, don't be nervous.
Yeah.
But it's really subtle. And but it's an interesting thing, and it probably speaks to his whole career about how he's able to kind of keep taking things back and putting them on his terms.
Yeah.
Which is, something, like a white performer wouldn't have to do. You never even come across something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
But
it's so cool. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, it was just really cool to see that. Really subtle, really cool. But
yeah, there's so many aspects to that man's life that you're just like, first of all, I remember this, but then I was like, oh right, he was born in San Francisco first.
Yeah.
Like he's a U.S. citizen first, then he went back, and the reason for going back was just like so classically, family first mentality. Also, his dad being an opera,
Yes,
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that in the book. So his dad was an opera performer.
Yeah.
And Bruce in Hong Kong was an actor as a kid.
Huge. Yeah.
Like a big star and starred in movies like as the main guy in movies.
Yeah.
And I guess he was such a little shit and causing problems that his parents had to send him back to America as kind of a last ditch effort to get him back on track because he's causing so many problems. That was something, I mean, he would benefit from like a 10-parter,
Oh,
I mean, he's one of these, I think you and I talked about, there's a certain athletes, Michael Jordan being one, Muhammad Ali being another, where you can just see endless documentaries, read endless biographies. There's so much information. They're so complex. They did so much. I'm always happy to see give me another 7 hours on Bruce Lee.
Sure.
But I guess, in that book, the guy points out and illustrates he was a little bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah.
And it is interesting too, because this book, it's called The Life. And if you're into Bruce Lee, you should check the book out. The guy really did his research, not a great writer, but really did his research. And Bruce Lee is so cool that you're with it. So you'll stumble through this guy's shitty prose just to get to the good Bruce Lee stuff. But, he kind of sets you up against them, and because he's so cocky and in kind of the wrong ways seemingly, and then he's like the way that he lives his life and as things go. I was telling Eugene when I was reading it, by the end of the book I was scared to finish because I didn't want him to die, because you really fall in love with him so much. But they have to leave some of that out in this, and he's a total totally into weed, like loved smoking weed. Huh. And that was like an important part of his life and his philosophy and all that stuff, because he loved to smoke out and philosophize. And they leave that out in the book or in the movie because I don't know how important it is to him in this movie and what they were trying to show in that.
Yeah.
But I did like reading about it. And because it reminded me, he's so ahead of his time. It reminded me a lot of where people are at now with it. To where he was able to kind of manage it and use it in a certain way.
Sure.
That was beneficial and medicinal. And and they also didn't get too much into Jeet Kune Do.
Right.
A lot of this was about filmmaking and and his family a little bit.
Yeah. This was the documentary, I feel like, was more about him becoming a star.
A star.
Yeah. Rather than, they would touch on things in his humanity, which was great. Yeah. And they touched it enough where you're curious about it, but they don't go so crazy where, they go down one road or the other. It does kind of center around the entertainment part of his life, the entertainment industry. Yeah.
And I think for like an hour and a half feature, you got to pick a lane, you're not going to be able to get to all of it. And
I would, and Trish and I, when we were watching it, we're like, I would watch a movie about Bruce Lee when he had his group of students who taught him how to be American. Yeah. Like there was that time of his life where they were like telling him the cool things to say, how to talk to girls, how to do this, how to do that, as he was teaching them martial arts.
Oh man, it's so cool.
And he's like, he's got to be like 23, 24, during that. It's like, I would watch that in a heartbeat. I'd watch that whole
Seattle.
Movie. Yeah, in Seattle.
In fucking Seattle.
I mean, it would be beautiful,
Oh yeah.
Also, it just, that movie also made you, especially in today's world, and I don't, and we also don't need to mention this again, but we will if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, and listening to this as a podcast, like all of the ads go towards are getting donated to basically any fuck racism, Black Lives Matter. We're donating to to be part of the movement. And
yep.
So, but with everything, and I've been reading and watching how he does it, but like Kareem,
oh man,
is the coolest dude, I think.
Yeah.
Like I want to watch a bunch of Kareem documentaries right now.
Yeah. What a talent. I got into him too. I read this other book, Showtime, about the Lakers. And it talked about Kareem, you know, who was there for like the first part of that whole movement when the Lakers were so dominant in the 80s with Magic Johnson and all them coming. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's ever been anybody else like him. Just interesting. What an interesting character. And recently he wrote on Veronica Mars, right?
Did he?
I swear to God, Amazing. I think he was in the fucking staff room.
Amazing.
On Veronica Mars when they rebooted it or whatever.
This is amazing news. I know we're not going to look it up right now, but
we're not going to look it up.
If that's true.
Yeah. And
if anybody in the comments on YouTube right now want to verify that he was a staff writer on Veronica Mars, I would love to know that.
I love how Lee loved him and he loved Lee, and they
oh yeah. And that, like, he was in the middle of a season, had 10 days off, and he was like, okay, I'll go shoot my scenes.
Game of Death. And it's such a trippy scene that they put together.
Oh man.
It bumps me out so much because you see the genius in Enter the Dragon, and then whatever footage they have left of Game of Death, they kind of like scrambled to finish it. They only had some of what he had done, but man, even like the aesthetic of the yellow jumpsuit and all that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was just, we only got the tip of the iceberg of what this guy had to offer. It's a real fucking bummer that's it.
Gosh.
And he was such a health freak. I guess we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
That I would be so curious to see what he would be contributing now, because I think he would be sharp and I think he would be in shape. Because how old would he be now? Not that old, right? 70s maybe?
Yeah, 70s. I mean, he'd be roughly around Kareem's age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting to hear.
He'd be mid to late 70s, I think.
Do you think he'd be popping up like in a Marvel movie and stuff, you know?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on, you know, where he would be career-wise.
If he wanted to even do movies anymore.
Yeah.
But I think he'd be one of those kind of beloved to guys that we all look to, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, with all the things that have happened in his life, and if he was around, like with what happened with Brandon Lee, it was like, who knows? I mean, that was the whole thing. Like, even seeing his family and seeing that Brandon Lee was on there, I was like crushed.
Yeah.
To even see him, you know,
hearing him talk and seeing boy and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And his sister, Shannon. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't get in too much into the mystery of his death, but the guy that wrote the book, and I think I told you this, Eugene, I can't remember what we talked about off mic or on mic. Eugene and I are Bruce Lee freaks. So we're, but the guy that wrote the book, so Lee had an issue. He was in such good shape and had such efficient temperature regulation that he would sweat like a ton. And so they're doing these low budget Golden Palace movies in Hong Kong. It's just the way that they shot those movies then. And he would sweat. And so it would throw off the continuity. So he had giant rings of sweat under his arms, and then they would disappear, and then they would, and it was a pain in the ass. It was impossible to dry in between or have, 50 tunics or whatever outfits for him to wear. So he got his sweat glands from under his armpits removed. And that was a procedure that they did at the time. And the day before his, like a week or so before his death, it was like a really hot stretch in Hong Kong. He had collapsed, and the coroner, there's all this mystery around his death, and people that have done cursory research know that people think, oh, maybe he had an allergic reaction to hashish or marijuana or this pain pill that he took for a headache.
Right.
But not likely. If you talk to coroners now, they think that those wouldn't be enough to kill him. Obviously, marijuana wouldn't do it. He was an experienced smoker, and it had no effect on him outside of, the normal. And so this guy hypothesizes that he overheated, and because he lost the ability to cool himself by sweating through his armpits, it was just too much heat, and he would work out and train so hard that he just couldn't ever get cool enough. So he overheated one time. They were able to bring him back, and the second time he overheated he was visiting a mistress, overheated there, and she was worried about, kind of blowing up their thing, and so she called the guy that ran the studio.
Right.
So he came over and they tried to kind of be quiet about it, and that might have been what had done it. But it was because I think he's in such good shape that's what ultimately,
crazy.
It's fucking crazy, man.
I mean, that's one of the questions on our YouTube live thing right now was, did they cover the alleged armpit surgery? And they didn't. They didn't cover it at all in Be Water.
And you should watch Be Water, because if I'm making a movie about him, that would be the lane I would take. There's so much shit. Read the fucking book if you want to know all that stuff. I don't know how much better outside of grim curiosity I feel learning that information as opposed to being able to see him. I mean, the revelation in Eugene nailed it was seeing the side by side of him with Muhammad Ali. And that was kind of Jeet Kune Do, which he ultimately didn't even want to name, right? He said, take the name away from it. It's just, I'm just going to keep adding and making it better. I mean, that's modern mixed martial arts now.
Well, it's also, his whole thing. I think they hit on the entertainment stuff, and then they hit on his philosophy a little bit more on this. And it's surprising that when they're hitting on his philosophy, they're not hitting on marijuana. And maybe that's just the filmmaker. That's just the conservative nature of the how they wanted to release the movie or the documentary, that they don't cover it, but I think because the lane is so inspired by just the entertainment industry and just kind of like the mentality of the Be Water kind of philosophy, they do play into the fact that, Jeet Kune Do or whatever the name would be is like, that's mine, not yours, Hang on, I'll be right back.
Do it. Eugene is a dad and a busy guy with a family, and so he's handling shit. Oh, also potential construction on the house. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But and I was even thinking too, it's just the listeners and me, the viewers and me. I was thinking too with the marijuana. So say this guy that's making the movie puts it in there, and I'm not uptight about it. You guys probably aren't uptight about it, but I think that would just steal all the attention. Marijuana, Bruce Lee smoked weed, and then that's all that anybody pays attention to, and not this other stuff. And it wasn't the most important part of his life, or even the most interesting, really. I was just telling them, Huge. I was you just putting his earphones in.
Nothing like a little live breakup. That was a press pause for a second. For the Bell babies out there who are watching this and they're like, why is it just Stanger and a blank screen of Eugene's office? The office has changed a little bit. I got a bookshelf over here. Yeah. Secondly, if you've listened to the pod, you know that our garage had some issues, and I haven't had the ability to work out in my own situation. And it's finally getting dealt with. So it's like we're in the final stages of getting it back running.
Thank God.
So they're in the middle of it, and it's right next to this room. So they saw me through the window doing this, and they knocked and wanted to tell me what was happening. So
hey man, you got to oversee the construction, buddy.
I have to do it. Yeah.
Part of being alive. I was just telling them about the weed thing. Yeah. I think, I'm not uptight about it. You're not, but if they put that in the film and then that's all the press cares about, like Bruce Lee and weed, it's just like, it's not the most interesting part of his life.
Right. And the philosophy,
you miss all this other stuff.
Right. And they still get across that the philosophy is basically based on your body. There's different ways to focus on it. Yeah. On Jeet Kune Do or whatever. It's like, there's going to be things that I can do because of my body type that is better for me, even within his martial arts, than he can do. So that's why it's just all about, being water, being what, which was cool.
Whatever you need to be.
Whatever you need to be, man.
Yeah. and I think that he was an early adopter of clean living and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people would train in martial arts, but they would just do the martial arts. They wouldn't exercise to elevate or enhance what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like the first to kind of do that, or, in the vanguard of that. And then also, as far as looking lean and ripped on film, I mean, that was another thing too. Like he knew, he knew how to get his body in shape and be lean. And that was like a careful consideration that he made. I know that like inspired a lot of guys like Chuck Norris and stuff who, he put Chuck Norris in some movies and they had a relationship. And, Norris wasn't thinking about being in shape, but then he saw Lee. He even said he feels like, because Lee wanted him to be big. He liked the juxtaposition between, Chuck Norris being big and then him being, in shape and lean.
Yeah.
And Norris feels like he did that on purpose so that he would look better. But it's like, yeah, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
He's a good guy and you're the bad guy.
And also, I mean, I did appreciate that the bad guy didn't necessarily look like a supervillain, like in a superhero movie.
No.
He was a good martial artist still. Yeah. And that's what they mentioned also in the movie.
Yeah. Norris had, and like, that was another thing, Lee wanted formidable opponents, that brought an element of danger and raised the stakes and were scary. And, Norris is lucky. I mean, I think it's something we floated on the Action Boys podcast. The only reason Norris had a career is because of racism.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I mean, there's guys that were trained in martial arts, that were great actors and superstars, that were Asian, but they picked Norris, who's as wooden as can be, because he was American, because he was white. That was like what they could like get behind as far as,
And now, was that pre-Enter the Dragon?
That was early on, like right around the same time, because I'm trying to think of what movie Norris, somebody will know it. That Norris was, Bruce put him in a movie.
Bruce put him in a movie, and that's what I think got him credibility as a white person too, to be doing martial arts.
Yeah, it was like he got vouched for by Bruce by being in his movie.
But that's that's the reason why he had the career that he had. But then and then there was that short-lived, David Carradine years. And,
what a disaster that was.
And the fact that, I don't know. I think it was fine that he was in Kill Bill, but it was almost like nodding your hat to him, right? Wasn't he? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to look at that again now. I mean, I didn't, that was just my naivete at the time, but learning all this stuff.
Yeah.
There's a super cool movie. I can't remember what the name of it is, but that Bruce, once everything fell apart with Kung Fu, he was trying to make this movie, and they worked on the script. It's like The Three Flutes or something like that. They worked on the script, and it was this monster script that had his philosophy and all this shit. And it was like, fuck you. If I'm not going to do Kung Fu, then I'm going to make this movie. And that was going to be his next thing. And he was always working on it. He's working on it with like 3 other stars at the time. And oh man, I'll look it up and I'll let you know what it is. But I would love to read the script of it. It never happened, but it was going to be this monster, weird, interesting movie.
Right.
I mean, he had like the script at one point was 400 pages or something crazy. But yeah, and it's like all these guys, like all these Hollywood guys that had all this swagger loved him. Steve McQueen loved him. They showed McQueen for a second in the movie, but McQueen flew to Hong Kong and was a pallbearer at his funeral, and didn't go anywhere. Like, it was impossible to get McQueen to go anywhere, but he loved Bruce so much. And I know when Bruce was trying to buy that house in Bel Air, that McQueen offered to help him with the mortgage on it, but Lee wouldn't take it. Like, he wouldn't do it. He wanted to earn it all himself.
Yeah.
But neat to think of them as buddies, and they would like fuck with each other. And yeah.
It's crazy.
They're rivals, like in a fun way,
I mean, the group of people that Bruce Lee surrounded himself with is remarkable and neat, and just like, just showed him. I mean, and the thing is that's great is, the documentary does show him in a positive light and the great things, and, and that's what picking a lane for a documentary will do. but yeah, there's stuff about his life that you want to get into, which is the weed stuff. And, even the way they kind of, they didn't even hint at all that that was a mistress.
No,
by the way, they just
not at all.
and they interviewed her as though she was just a friend.
Yeah. Well, she was an actress, and they did. I mean, I'm sure they either worked together or they were going to put her in the movie.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, we touched on it earlier with the amount of time you have. So if you have an hour and a half, you need, if somebody's a complex individual and you want to dabble in some of the stuff to where they learned from or grew or, different parts of their life, you have to give them the appropriate amount of time. If you don't have that time, then it's not worth it. You do them a disservice, because then people don't get to hear the full story.
Sure. And also it's like, is Shannon gonna be part of it if we focus on that, or, and I think, what I am loving to a certain extent, which I think is good, is that she's kind of taken over the, kind of the, how people are viewing and how people are using Bruce Lee and his name in the world now.
Right.
And, she's very, she'll go up against, because of things like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and things along those lines, that you're just kind of, I don't know. It's good that somebody that she, his daughter is, for whatever reason, they might have had some, good, bad, whatever mom kid issues or dad kid issues that you can have, especially when she was so young. But like the fact that she has taken over the name, and how he is perceived is amazing. And I know that she oversaw, to a certain extent, this documentary.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Well, that's the thing too, with you look at these people with kids that are still alive, kid that's still alive, and you think like, oh, I want to know every detail about him. But it's not for me to know,
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't belong to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's her dad. So she, he has a name and a legacy. And if she wants to protect that, then she should. And it's good that she is. You're right. I mean,
and there'll be a chance that, Paris or Blanket are gonna speak out about their dad.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be interested in hearing it and hearing that perspective, but they're going to be allowed to show whatever side that they want to still, it's still their dad. And I think we need to respect that. I mean, it's this, everything now is going to come back to this. And I think that's what's good, is like, because then we talk about everything that's happened, and the Floyd stuff, and people saying like, well, he was he was not a good dad. He's had run-ins with whatever. And it's like, but that's not the reason he was killed.
Right.
Like everybody has certain amounts of paths that they live, and pasts that they've had, and you don't know at the time, and it's unfair for us to judge him on that if we don't know where he was in that moment, and we're never going to know. And that's
people should have rights as citizens.
Yes,
you have rights as citizens, and sometimes, I mean, I don't know, I don't even get into like a whole thing, but I mean, I don't even know if it's a case with Floyd. But instances, I talk about it with my dad sometimes, who's way more right than I am. Mm-hmm. And I telling him like a while back, like sometimes, and this isn't the same with Floyd, but in other situations, sometimes the police or whoever's going to have that job in the future, we change the way police work, but it should, sometimes people need to be protected from themselves. Mm-hmm. And that should be, this guy should be able to have been kept safe, and whatever was going to happen through our court system, but he should at least be able to have been kept safe by the police. But anyway, like a whole, who gives, I mean, they don't know anything about him except that he is a citizen that they should be keeping safe.
Right. Right. And also that, yeah, they shouldn't. Yeah. Regardless, they shouldn't have the power that they had, and the situation should never be that situation. And I know
it's hard
we
not
shouldn't
to
get
always
into it. I
It's hard
know.
not to come back to it. I mean, you can find it in it
And
permeates
the
every.
thing is like, I understand that your dad is, right, and on the right in politics wise, but this is not even like, I just want, it's not a political thing. We're
Agreed.
I feel
Yeah.
like everybody should have their views, but everybody's view should, like, the view should be, here we are, we're all American citizens. All of our voices should be equally heard. Now, just and everybody felt safe in the same way. And then let us discuss things differently. Like, you can be anything, believe in things, but we know that ultimately here in the US, everybody wants to be equal. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
You want a good job and you want a great family. You want to love your job and you want to have a good family. That's what everybody wants, and everybody's trying to protect that. So if
Right.
everybody wants that, everybody should be able to have to go after that equally. And I think that's where this is not a political thing. It's just a life thing. It's like a human rights issue.
Oh yeah, no question.
And it's just, but again,
I was just even thinking, you hear like old stories. I mean, this, of somebody somewhere drinking, and then the cop knows them, and then they follow them slowly behind to make sure they get to their house okay, and then they're inside and they sleep it off, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a crazy thing? Does that person need to have like a knee put on their throat till they're dead? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is a reality. That is an alternative.
Yeah.
Or even this other guy that stole the taser or whatever.
Right.
It's just like, hey, you knew he wasn't armed. Just let him go. Why are you who cares?
Right.
It's got to he got your taser. He got the best of you. That's it. They shouldn't even have been bothering him in the first place. But if he's not armed, I mean, what are you doing? Why is it escalating to that? I don't know. We could go on and on with
right.
it.
Yeah. And again, there's details that are left out that were, that happened. And it also depends on like the media that we're listening to or watching that affects our views on it. And I think, ultimately we need to just focus on how we as people can be equal and not focus so much on what we're watching, and like trust our gut in what is right. But and to get back to the documentary, because it still kind of happens in there, or actually before it, people on our, thank you YouTube peeps, for Matthew Moynihan for letting us know that he was on the writing team. Talk about Kareem.
Kareem?
Yeah.
I mean, what a guy, dude.
Yeah.
The guy's got like 5 fucking championship rings.
Yeah.
An unstoppable skyhook. And he fucking wrote on the Veronica Mars reboot. He's in a Bruce Lee movie. Fucking crazy. Hilarious in Airplane.
Funny. Good. He's good. He's great. He's just doing it.
But speaking to like getting to know people. Here you have this. So here you have Bruce Lee and what he had to overcome as an Asian American to get over on a U.S. to just get a shot.
Yeah.
And the guy, he knew he was a star. The people that came into his orbit knew that he was a star. And it just took so much for it to finally fucking happen. I mean, he had to go and leave and make awesome movies in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And then for them to see, and then Americans to see, or like the studio heads to see that they can make money with them. And that's finally what put it all together. And then it was, the movie's a fucking huge box office hit. It still like endures, I showed it to Stone. My 9-year-old, he fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. And right in the middle there, just like the kind of montage of white people playing Asian roles was
Oh yeah.
So heartbreaking to see.
It's unforgivable.
I was crying.
Oh no.
I will be honest. I was crying through a lot of the middle part of that. The feeling of secondhand, like second class citizen stuff. And, just thinking, just reliving my own journey of going through the industry of just like, man, like how many extra hoops. And it's crazy. And it's just like, and this is what you get this. And then for reasons that, are still unknown, we lose him. So if you would have given him the chance when his chance was there, what could we have seen?
Yeah.
If he was equal when he was working his ass off, then what could we have seen from him?
Yeah.
That we missed. Or, that would have changed every moment that would have, happened after that. And we might have gotten Enter the Dragon earlier. We might have gotten some shittier stuff.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'd take it.
But we'd at least be able to see even like, what we have seen despite, everything else, or like because of the adversity that he's dealt with is great. Imagine if he wasn't met with that initially, if he didn't have to have that feeling of they don't think that an Asian actor can take a leading role,
right?
What he could have been.
Yeah.
And also, like, I feel like we would have seen things from him even better, because one of the things that I really appreciate that they did mention in this is that he didn't work for a little while, and it's not because he wasn't there weren't opportunities. It's because he didn't want to play the submissive, the submissive role that was the only thing that was available. He could have climbed and been just one of the other guys that had the short career of filling in the blanks. But he knew he was better than that. And he, and he gave him that.
I mean, that's a pretty radical thought for then, to just turn shit down, and take that risk. And I mean, what we got from it was so amazing. We're so lucky. But man, and even that, I mean, you look at like the Chuck Norris Lee comparison, what Lee had to be 500,000 times better than Norris to get a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that fair? I mean, literally had to be like, okay, if you're the most amazing in the world, then you can have an opportunity. Like, he did it and got it. But it's because it's interesting. It's like because I think you'll see certain people will point to like Lee, like, hey, look, Bruce Lee did it. It's fair. Anybody could, anybody that's Asian could. And it's like, yeah, but he was 5 million times better than the best white guy that was doing it. That's what he had to do. I mean, how's that? That's not a level playing field, It doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
That's so that brings stuff up for you. I'm even thinking too, because, quote unquote PC culture or what's appropriate to do now. I mean, and I think by and large it still happens, but making fun of Asian people, that's only been off limits for like a short period of time.
I know.
Like it's not like a long standing thing. I mean, that's
that's,
you still see it pop up a lot.
Sure. Yeah. And, and it doesn't matter what, and that's the thing, like the hate that comes from it, or that it's based off of, is still there. And that's also the thing that ultimately, is that is like an individual problem that we cannot affect so much. Telling people what is on their moral compass, meaning as if we could at least all be equal, and that's the very least, which is like shouldn't be the problem. Then if you still hate me for my race for whatever reason that you do, I can't change you.
Right.
But I should have equal rights to you, even if you hate me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like,
yeah,
you know,
you should have the same opportunities, be able to get a job, be able to be protected by the police.
Right.
And then if somebody's fucking got a concrete mind and you can't win them over, whatever, you'll deal with that.
But
later.
At least I feel like I could be protected by my country from this person. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we're talking about. I think that's the thing. Like, you know, like, favoritism is always going to be there because, you know, I also get that. I'm going to favor my son over somebody else's kid, you know. To be completely honest, I you know, like, that will be a hard thing to change. If there's a day in the future where we're dealing with that, you cannot love your kid more than every other person's kid. If that's the case and that's what we're fighting for, I feel like we'll be in a good place.
Yeah.
But everybody's equal, then it's like, okay, if that's the battle now, that's the battle now, but that's at least putting everybody on the same playing field.
No, you're right. I mean, look at it. If you remove people get uncomfortable if it's race stuff, but let's say like somebody from your high school is, you know, competing in something, you're gonna root for the guy in your high school. Like,
yes,
hey, that guy went to fucking, you know,
yeah,
San Dimas High, man. Go, I hope he wins, you know?
Exactly.
So that's always going to exist, but the laws and society and the country should protect everybody equally and award them the same opportunities. And then we can deal with the kind of individual, anecdotal, you know, prejudices and stuff that come up just as that are natural as human beings.
Right.
But yeah, when it's everything stacked against you, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's so many ways to make it, you know, to try to get people on board, or, you know, there's so many, imagine if this scenarios to get people on board. And it's
I know you're right.
But, and it is the ultimate thing is, I'm not saying don't hate me.
Yeah.
I get it for whatever reason you will, or you might. I'm not asking you to, like, personally not hate me.
You're not saying don't hate me because you ain't me.
Right. I'm not saying don't hate me because you ain't me. I mean, I have said that, and I will continue to say it to a certain handful of people.
Right, but not in this particular instance. You're not.
But
saying
don't hate me before you've met me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's So back to Bruce Lee. So what's your first experience with Bruce Lee? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It was like, you know, my first experience was from my cousins, my dad, I mean, it was a huge deal to watch Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
I remember I couldn't have been, I had to wait till I was old enough to be allowed to see it. And then when I first did see it, I was scared of it because, like, that mirror scene and all that stuff was scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
And then because there was some, like, you know, just kind of a thematic stuff that, like, and philosophy stuff that I'm just like, what? I wasn't ready for it. So then it was just like I just needed to get to the martial arts scenes.
Sure. That usually hooks to everybody, that, you know, and then later you kind of unpack the rest of it.
Sure. Yeah. And it was the reason why I was just like, I think I got into Wolverine because of that movie. Yeah.
The guy's got that claw.
You're like, oh, that's like Wolverine, you know?
Yeah. The last shot.
But this guy's a good guy? Sweet. You know, like Wolverine meaning. Yeah.
Why the hair on the back of that thing?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
It's like you really wanted it to be like some kind of bear thing or something.
Yeah.
It's like you got a good. I wonder if that was actual bear hair or if it was fake hair.
I don't. But it did do this. I will say that as a kid watching it, and as an Asian kid watching it, it made you go, I ain't gonna fuck around with an older Asian man either, because he'll still fuck me up.
Still fuck you up. Yeah.
You're like, Bruce Lee was fighting, like, basically what looked like a old like a like a
yeah, like a principal or something.
yeah. So you're like, fuck, man, that principal is still fucking around.
Your friend's older dad, like you got a
Yes.
friend that's got a dad a little on the older side.
Yeah,
You're like, shit.
And and a lot of martial arts movies kind of had that thing, and I think that was on purpose, of like, respect your elders because they'll still fuck you up thing, because it was like like if you watch even a modern-ish martial arts movie like a Kung Fu Hustle, it was like the old dude and the mom with the grandma with the slipper were the real deal.
Totally.
And you're like, right, of course. It's like, respect your elders because they're the ones that will ultimately be your backup,
Legend of Drunken Master, like that old dude trains him and fucking and they would have they'd have young guys play old and all that stuff in some of those old Golden Palace ones.
So good.
Yeah, my dad got me into Bruce Lee, and I remember my dad's one of those guys who before IMDb knew stuff about movies and people, and just like good with trivia and all that shit. So he would lay out, had some good facts about Bruce and like how this movie was a hit, how he died before the movie came out. And it really kind of helped cement that mythology in my mind of like, oh man, and my dad, my mom and my dad were out on the scene. And so they went to the movie. He says he remembers seeing it, in the theaters when it came out, and what a sensation it was. And, people were all nuts for it. It was like our first real, as Americans, like our first real taste of something like that.
Yeah. I mean, and I saw, it was mainly my cousins and friends that were Asian that we would watch, we'd try to watch it. And my dad a little bit. My dad would show me some of the stuff. My dad was really pushing. We lived in Detroit. We got to get into the Motown vibe.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I listened to a lot of Motown growing up because my dad was like
Smokey Robinson.
Yeah. He was like, this is where we moved to. This is our where we live. This is our world. We gotta, jump on it. And I think that's what kind of, got me I also think, like, real talk, that my dad was a lot more liberal than he put on. And I think about that more now too. I'm like, oh yeah, my dad definitely low key, was just like supporting me in a different way.
Well, I think religious parents, it almost had to become a little performative. Like you had to rep your religion and act like you were, even if like your thoughts and ideologies may be different, or even your actions kind of behind the scenes, you would say things that the religion said, but then your actions would be something different, more progressive or liberal or whatever it is,
Yeah.
How old is Smokey Robinson? Because he still looks good.
Yeah.
And you'll look, and like he had fucking shit coming out like in the early 60s.
Yeah, he's got to be in his 80s at this point, right?
Yeah. But have you seen how good he looks?
Yeah.
He can still sing. He sounds good.
I'm telling you, man, I think he's just like, Stevie Wonder too.
Stevie, yeah. He's
much older now, but like, gosh, man.
I saw him at a Whole Foods.
Stevie Wonder. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Looked great. Yeah.
I mean, he's shopping at Whole Foods, so he's
doing fine.
He's getting the good stuff in, right?
He's doing fucking kombucha, non-GMO.
He's doing his organic stuff, so he's making it happen.
He just called to say he's organic, man.
But I mean, I couldn't recommend Be Water more. I don't think, just to get the sense of it, and especially right now, like the vibes of today's society, to kind of look into it. Like it has to take you, if you look at like some of the old cartoons and the way Mickey Rooney is in Breakfast with Tiffany, it's like, it's embarrassing, right? It's embarrassing.
It's disgusting. It's
it's
unforgivable.
And I will, like I said, I have more than enough to apologize for as well. And, but like, I've done I've been doing sketch shows and shows on TV and shows on stage that I'm playing different races, and I, I will say that because I am so hyper aware of it, that I tried to work my hardest to be as educated as I could going into it, where I wasn't just going like, what's the easiest route for me to do this, and do my research so that I, even when I was younger and it seemed goofy and whatever, I felt like I was trying to do my homework. That being said, even if it comes off as wrong, I would 100% apologize for it now and apologize for it anyway,
Well,
and I think that's the thing.
Yeah. And I think, you doing that research is what made it funny and well received. I mean,
Sure.
How many times did you have to apologize? You probably didn't, because you did your homework and it was appropriate and it was funny. And if you look at Mickey Rooney.
Yeah. Mickey Rourke has plenty to apologize
he's
for.
Got plenty to apologize about.
Yeah.
But you look at like Mickey Rooney, he didn't. He was leaning into a stereotype, because all you have to do is watch Enter the Dragon and you're like, oh, you want to see an Asian leading man?
Yeah.
Look at Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon. It's a lot different than what you're doing there. So I don't know where that kind of gross shit came from, and that's why it doesn't hold up, and that's why it's not funny and it's not well received, because it was lazy and, coming from a place of hate and judgment as opposed to reality.
Right. Yeah. And like, because it, I think there is also a difference between, if it's a movie or a TV show where it's somebody that is playing it for the duration of the movie, or, if I'm for the duration of a movie or a TV show playing a different race and me doing the homework and me being okay with it is one thing, than me in a sketch show where I'm playing a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And know that is part of my job, which is, in a way, we just wouldn't write it that way now.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that has to factor into it is it's the opportunity. So let's say you and I, we go back to this. This is one of those imagine if.
Yeah.
This is always, but so let's say, the thing that you talked about originally, like, let's just say everything was equal. People may hate, they may discriminate, whatever, but everything was equal opportunity, equal representation, all that kind of shit. You probably could have people playing other races.
Absolutely.
If everything was already equal. The problem is that there's like the one chance for an Asian person to be in something is a white person playing it. Even if it is positive, it doesn't matter, because it's like, there's that's it. This is the one chance we had. And then it's like, it's going to be played by Emma Stone and Aloha or whatever.
Right.
Versus like, if like every, look, there's this, there's that, there's this person did their homework, they're an actor, they can do it. Everything's represented. But like, when there's no other representation, then it's like fucking.
And if as the world, and as a country, it shows in our it shows in our politics and in our world and in our structure that we are doing our best to be equal. Then if a person of another race is playing a part that I auditioned for, that is my race, and they're just great at it, none of it feels like favoritism, because there's equality. Like, I would love to be able to eventually play whatever I get and feel comfortable of not stepping on anybody's toes because of that. And the same with anybody playing anything that I could possibly play. And I think that's just,
that's another interesting thing that people should know about too, is that if you're relegated to being some kind of like person of color hire, so it's like you have this show and there's, two white leads in it, and they need to hire somebody like a person of color for the third lead to check a box. Then it's you. And then, like, say originally they wrote it as like like a Latino guy or something, and they can't find it. So then they end up putting you in there. Then have this guilt of like, oh, did I take a role away from a Latino guy because they're just trying to check this box?
Sure.
Versus Why couldn't it be you and the Latino guy and the two leads?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, like you're a better actor than I am. How many leads of a TV show have you gone out for?
Not many.
Not
And
many,
even
like,
and if I have, it's after they haven't found, or like pilot season has already gone on for a while where they had already cast most of the ones that people wanted, so then they're now going diverse with the part.
Right.
So don't pay attention to the way it's written. Now they're going diverse. Then you're like, oh, okay. Or now they're going all ethnicities.
Yes.
Now they are. And then that, and then that goes into this next conversation of, and I posted this on my Instagram a little bit like a week ago, of like how actors, as fragile as actors are, and people in this are still using it without realizing that you're using racism as a way to make yourself feel better, which is you didn't get the part because they decided to go diverse.
Yeah.
And it's like every part should go diverse, so then you would have lost the part anyway.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But the fact that you're using that as an excuse of like, well, they went diverse or they were looking for this instead of me. And it's like, it shouldn't matter,
No.
And that shouldn't be one of the qualifiers that affect the reason to make yourself feel better.
Yeah. I mean, totally. And I can show you, I bet I've gone out for more like leads for sure. And we could show everybody these parts. In no way is it important that the person looks like, it's nowhere like in the script where it's like, I don't know, fucking mustache dude, white dude, it's like it's not consequential at all. Could have been anybody.
And the crazy thing is that, then it becomes ultimately how lazy it's going to end up being. You don't want to cast me as a lead, even if you think I'm great, just because it's going to be hard to find a kid that looks like me.
Right.
Or half like me. Oh, then we have to think about what we're going to cast as far as your wife, because that can't be then a white person anymore, because then it's going to be hard for us to find a kid that looks like that. Or it will be easier if we do get a black woman to play, because then we could either get an Asian kid that looks like you or a black woman, a kid that looks like her. And it's like, no, just get, let's figure that out once you pick the best people.
Totally. And it's also, if you got to do a white kid with Eugene as the dad, just do it. They do it all the time with white people where they have like an inexplicable, they just add something in there. They're like adoption or something like that, and people just fucking move on. It's all this fucking bullshit. They're making more work before they even know what the work is. And it's all, it's all fear and, fuck it.
Well, I mean, it's all bottom line stuff. I mean, it all comes back down. Unfortunately, it all goes back to corporate America, and then how much are we going to buy into the capitalism of it? Because it's like the reason why you're ultimately doing that and casting two white leads is because the people that are going to buy it and all the products that are being sold is to white Americans between their 18 and 35. And that's who's buying the most products, or 49, 18 to 49. That's who's buying the most product. That's who has the most money right now. So then you're buying into that. So, all of these products are buying into that. And then same with the TV shows, which are just there to buy products, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So
let me lay this on you. So this will bring it back around to the Be Water. And I want everybody to think about this. This is another imagined scenario. So we all like Kung Fu, and the show has its following, and it's referenced and endured. Somewhat.
We all like the show Kung Fu, you said?
Yeah, people did.
I didn't watch a single episode of it.
Okay, all right. So this is for the people that did. Okay, so it's the show's referenced. People talk about it and know it, and it had its run. Imagine if they just rolled the dice and they cast Bruce Lee. Imagine how popular that show would be now. Would it be constantly talked about? Would it be on t-shirts? Would it be streaming and in box sets? Probably. Probably. I mean, would it have ran only for a couple of seasons? Probably not. I mean, as a kid, the only reason I watched Green Hornet was because of Kato.
Sure.
I couldn't give a fucking shit about the Green Hornet.
Right.
So, I mean, that's one of those things. Like they said, hey, look, it's not going to work with Lee in the lead.
Yeah.
And you look, if they had done that, if they had the, I mean,
but who knows? But
who
at the
knows?
same
You're
time,
right. Who knows? I don't know.
would it be popular now? Yes. With Bruce
Yeah.
Lee in it now? Yes, of course. At that time as well, there was still plenty of,
Yeah.
it might not have had as many seasons as the true fans would have wanted, even with Bruce Lee, just because, speaking of all of this stuff too, just June 12th is Loving Day, which just allowed for mixed race couples to be a thing.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
And that there was 12 states that still had that law that had to change it on that day.
Wow.
So it's like, that's 1967.
Yeah.
Which is like 50, 53 years ago. Like, that's not that long ago. So,
yeah.
there are people out there that still, don't, like, there are people alive right now that don't agree with that, and then have also taught their family that they're not okay with that, and their family is not okay with that, and so on and so forth. So it's like, I would hope that right now that would go. And that it's funny that somebody on our live streaming thing right now was just like, Lou Diamond Phillips in La Bamba. He's playing a Hispanic part, and he's half Filipino.
Yeah.
And
he's played a lot of Native American parts,
and he's played a lot of Native American parts.
He talks about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, in a way, it's a way of Lou Diamond Phillips being the model minority in that too, of like, he was the safer choice. And, with all of the issues that I've had as well, like, there has been countless times where I can feel in my heart that I was the quote unquote safe choice for whatever reason that is. And, part of the reason why Bruce Lee might not have been as huge as he was is because his accent was so thick.
Yeah.
And people weren't ready for that, which they are now. And it took time. I mean, it took,
he was so close. I mean, did you hear him in these radio interviews and stuff? And he sounds so cool too. Like, he was, if he would have fucking had a couple more years, man.
Could you imagine? Yeah.
It's such a bummer. You guys, you got to watch this documentary.
Yes.
I mean, if for nothing else, to see this footage that this guy put together, it's really incredible stuff. And he found some old radio interviews, and I mean, you couldn't fall more in love with the guy.
Yeah. It's pretty great. It's pretty amazing.
I would have loved to have seen him as Kang in Kung Fu. I mean, I think you're right.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I would love to see him in many other things that he didn't get to do. So
yeah, I got to find the name of this movie for you, Eugene.
Yeah.
That he was going to write, that he did write. It's so wild. You should read this book too. It's a little bit of a slog because the guy is such a fucking dipshit writer. But, yeah, keep going, and I'll see if I can find this thing here.
Oh yeah, you're actually looking something up. But yeah, I love that. Somebody on our YouTube live did mention that that they did a school report or a presentation on Bruce Lee growing up. I mean, I definitely did one.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it was probably pretty lazy, the information that I had for it. It was mainly a lot of pictures of him in cool poses, in like a diorama or on a poster board or something. But yeah, definitely an icon career-wise. That I looked up to. I mean, and I will say that one of my biggest influences, like, just because of him, and then because of like martial arts films, and that's where I saw most Asians on film, was like him and Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yeah, hell yeah,
it was huge. And even he had, and Lou Diamond Phillips, and they all had to, kind of play into parts that were available to them. And now it just would be such a different world, and I would hope that it just keeps changing positively so that we can see more and experience more, you know, of different people's takes and different people's experiences. What's the movie?
It's called the Silent Flute.
Huh.
The Silent Flute with James Coburn, set to co-star. He wanted McQueen, but they were kind of battling at the time in a fun way. He was even, maybe they were circling like Roman Polanski to direct.
Crazy.
And it was wild, and like just how weird and cool the movie was too. It was all his stuff. It was like kung fu and philosophy and all the stuff that he was into kind of mixed into one pot. And it would have been wild.
It would have been 8 hours, but
yeah.
Well, cool. For everybody who's watching on us live right now, thank you for watching. We're gonna finish up so you can listen to it on the podcast tomorrow. So still, even if you're watching us live on YouTube or watching this on YouTube, please download the podcast and rate, review, subscribe to it so that you know, we can keep the podcast going.
Yep, we love you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch up with you over on the podcast. Thanks for being here today, and rock and roll.